Welcome back to Sportscaster.com's open mic here on WJR. I'm Johnny Kane, and this next story might be the best one we've shared on this show, not only because of the improbability of what Allan Wylie has accomplished in his sports broadcasting career, despite not being able to see, but because you really get a sense of just how genuine a person he is. Gabe Loper, a junior student athlete at Wayne State University, who's concentrating on sports broadcasting, joins me now. And you interviewed Allan Wylie. What is his story?
First off, we had an absolute pleasure of being able to talk to him and have him on Sportscaster.com. But Cleveland kid, but grew up a Detroit sports fans with some influence of some cousins, and just when you talk about pure love of the game, right? I mean, like it doesn't really get much better than this. So yeah, I mean he's been listening to the game and has some sports idols and stuff for himself, and since 2 years old really.
Yeah.
I've been listening to it, so it's one of those things where the sport is so much more than just what you see on screen, so and his story, and it's truly incredible, despite not being able to see, and being a sports fan but being blind at the same time, and it's been no barrier for him, and if you ask him, he'll say the same thing.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. When I first heard about the story, it's as you say it out loud, it's like, well, what do you mean he's an analyst? You say, well, yeah, he's an analyst, and you know, despite being blind, I mean, like to me, I don't know. I mean, it's one of the most remarkable things that you can do. Like if you say, hey, I'm passionate about sports, and I'm still going to do this thing. And I thought your interview with him is just terrific from a standpoint of, like you said, it's not a barrier, but it's almost like when you don't know any differently, you and I can't necessarily empathize with what that would be like, not seeing the visuals that accompany sports. But he absorbs the games like in his own way, and has now translated that into an aspiring career as a sportscaster. I mean, the kid's remarkable.
Yeah, he's incredible. He's incredible. And the one of the first things I noticed was, you know, the voice of sports broadcasting. It's one of those things where it's not exactly something that you learn or something that you kind of pick up along the way. It's one of those things where it kind of naturally just kind of hits you. And from the first question I asked him, I think when we first got onto the stream for the interview, first one of the first things I noticed was like, whoa, like this kid has, it's the cadencing, the voice, the tonage. It was like, at the end of the day, I mean, nothing else matters, and like I said, he's absolutely incredible, what he's done, what he is doing. And one of my favorite questions I got to ask him was just, how does he do it? How does he do it? So a lot to learn. I know I learned a lot, and took a lot of feedback away, and the things I can incorporate in my own broadcasting career in the future. And like I said, absolute blast, incredible kid.
Incredible kid, inspirational story. Here's Gabe Loper with Allan Wylie from Rowan University.
This is an absolute pleasure to have you on here at Sportscaster.com with us. You have an incredible story, of course. That's going to be an inspiration to all of us, and this is truly what Sportscaster is all about. So, Allan, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course, absolutely. So, first question: you grew up and went to high school in the Cleveland, Ohio area, but you also grew up to be a Michigan college and professional sports fan. So, why is that, and what led it to be that way?
So I went up to Michigan when I was 10 for a family reunion, and I ended up meeting cousins of mine that I hadn't met or hadn't met in a while that had played in the marching band for the University of Michigan. And I started talking to them, and not only did they like Michigan, but they were also Detroit sports fans. And they seemed like great guys. So I'm like, I think I'm going to let myself be influenced by these guys, and that's who I'm going to cheer for. I was in Michigan for about 2 days that day, or that year when I was 10 years old, and then I came back a Michigan and Detroit sportsaholic.
With that being said, so were you a sports fan before that, or are you just looking for a team, just kind of like, I guess, sports homeless, or was it one of those things where they kind of allowed the Michigan sports and the Detroit sports to kind of overrule an existing fanship?
So originally I was all Cleveland, but the Detroit sports and Michigan sports overruled that almost immediately. So I wasn't that loyal.
I understand. I understand. But since then, you've been completely loyal to Detroit sports. So that's great. That's great. I love it. So my second question is, tell us a little bit about your love for sports and how that has translated into beginning your journey into sports broadcasting.
Yeah, so I started listening to sports when I was a baby. I would say like 1 or 2 years old, listening to Tom Hamilton, who did the Cleveland, then Indians, now Guardians games, still does them. And I'd listen to them when I'd fall asleep, and I really enjoy just listening to Hamilton call the games.
A swing and a high fly, deep left center field. It is gone. Hello.
And I'd also listen to Joe Tate, who is now passed away, sadly, but he would do the Cleveland Cavaliers games.
There's to Doherty, back to Wheelo, the three in the air. It's gone. He won it. Wheelo hit a three-pointer on the sideline at the buzzer. Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus, and he comes from Lubbock, Texas.
And I would listen to him as well before I went to sleep. And so it just evolved from there. My dad influenced it a lot because he played football and baseball in high school and college. So just really all that and just his intensity, he's a big Cleveland sports fan. So that kind of rubbed off on me as far as being a sports fan is concerned.
I guess to follow up with that would be, are there any other, sportscasters even today that you would say that you look up to, that you would embody, that you would say, when I become, a professional sportscaster long term, this is who I want to be like? Who's been the inspiration to you?
Yeah, you're probably going to know a lot of these names, actually. Dan Dickerson for the Tigers, Mike Valenti, who works at 97.1 The Ticket, and basically, everyone that works at 97.1, Valenti, John Jansen, Doug Karsh, Rico Beard have all really inspired me to really want to do a talk show. As far as games are concerned, Jim Brandstatter, who did the Michigan games for quite a while, George Blaha for the Pistons. Of course, he does Spartan games as well. So really, a lot of Detroit legends have really gotten me to where I am today mentally because I had something to look up to. Jim Price for the Tigers, also another one. So really, all those guys are really the reason why I'm doing this.
Yeah. So with that being said, I mean, what kind of legacy, do you want to leave in terms of, in the future sports broadcasting? Obviously, with that incredible story that you have, is it one of those things where it's like I want to, maybe just do talk shows or be in the color commentary? It's like what impact on the sports world do you see yourself having?
Yeah, talk shows is my first choice because, it's not much moving around. But with that being said, I love doing color commentary too. So Doug Karsh does both Michigan Wolverines and he hosts a talk show with Gator Anderson. So something like that would be my dream job. And, to do a talk show, especially in a sports town like Detroit, would just be like cloud nine for me.
For sure. But you'll get there, man. You'll get there. Yeah, that's incredible. Now, I gotta ask. I mean, how do you do it? One of the things that you're kind of known for is your memory and your ability to memorize things, stats, plays, and stuff that happen, far earlier in the game. So, how do you do that? And kind of tell us what goes through your mind during any given game and how you lay out your art that is sports commentary.
Yeah, so what I do is I mainly through my mind, what goes through is basically like, how would I want somebody to tell me what's going on? How descriptive would I want them to be? And then I would kind of translate that into what I'm doing. Now, it's honestly how I do it. It's simple, but not really. It's just a lot of listening. And that's not to just the play by play person or my co host or whoever. It's to the basketball on the court. It's to the crowd. It's to a referee blowing his whistle. It's to if I can hear players talking, no matter what sport. It's just a lot of listening and taking whatever I can get into my head and then remembering that either for analysis now or later in the game.
Oh, that's incredible. And then you mentioned obviously, the relationship that a play-by-play guy has with the color commentary, the color commentator. With Sportscaster, we've had quite a few, whether work with Chris Renwick or and a lot of people that will be working in that feature field. Kind of explain that relationship. Obviously, being very important, but explain that relationship that needs to be had between the color commentator and the play-by-play guy in order to fulfill that art form that you were just explaining.
Yeah, so I think relationship above all else, communication is key. Whether it's myself asking whoever I'm working with, can you describe what direction players are going or if they're defended well or not, to just, suggestions made in game about how excited you should be during a certain play or just something. Communication is key. As long as you can have a cordial relationship where you're not afraid to tell them if you need to correct something or if you want them to do something more specifically or more often, I think that's big.
Yeah. So what's been your favorite element about working, with color commentary, whether, or even your own commentary, either on your own or for a future talk show? What's been like, whether it's a favorite game or what's been your favorite element about this entire journey that you've gone through?
I would say my favorite thing is, I don't know if I have a favorite game or something, but my favorite element is just like the atmosphere at games as a whole is what really gets me going, because no matter what mood I'm in, like if I have the headphones on and I can hear the crowd noise, it's all just like, okay, it's time to lock in. And there's a great crowd behind whoever I'm watching play. It's just really that is the best element. And that's gone from high school football all the way up to now.
That's incredible. What do you hope people, specifically young and upcoming sportscasters just like yourself, hope that they can learn from you and what you've been able to do and continue to do on your journey?
Just, I guess my big thing is just keep fighting. And it's not going to be easy. It's not supposed to be easy. But if you show the world what you can do, if you have a disability or not, they're going to notice it. And if you have enough drive to figure out what you want to do and what your dream is, and you're going to do everything you can to, then that's really the important thing, because that's what I've been doing.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Allan, like I said, you were an inspiration to many. This has been absolutely fantastic. It's been a pleasure to be able to talk to you. I hope that we may even be able to work together sometime in the future. I wish you best of luck. And yeah, this is going to be great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
One of the best parts of that interview is when Allan Wylie said, if you have enough drive to figure out what you want to do and what your dream is, you're going to do everything you can. Gabe Loper, appreciate it. You're listening to Open Mic on WJR.